One of the most shocking results of the college football season in 2023 was Stanford pulling off the upset against Colorado. The Buffs were up by almost 30 points at one point in the game, and Stanford slowly started chipping away and ended up coming all the way back and pulling off the shocking upset win. The game was one of few bright spots on the season for Stanford, and they do not win that game without star wide receiver Elic Ayomanor, a receiver who I was not sure how I would feel when going into my film study, and I was very curious how much I was going to take away outside of the Colorado game, but I was thoroughly impressed with his tape, and today we will be talking about what makes him one of my favorite prospects in the entire draft class. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, which I will leave linked down in the description below. For $5 a month, you will get exclusive access to my draft board, player evaluations, and exclusive prospect interviews throughout the year. Also, leave a comment and let me know which players you guys want to see me talk about in a future video. And without further ado, let's take a closer look at Elic Ayomanor. As we mentioned in the intro, Stanford was pretty horrible in 2023, but Ayomanor was a bright spot for the Cardinal. He finished the season with 63 receptions, 1,022 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the year, and while the numbers at first glance aren't the most incredible, he had a huge impact on their season, and he single-handedly won them the Colorado game, where he finished with 294 yards and 3 touchdowns in just that game. He showed some really high wide receiver 1 upside and is one of the more intriguing wide receivers in this draft class. Ayomanor has a big, powerful frame for the wide receiver position. Standing at 6'2", 210 pounds, he has some incredible size and length to be an elite boundary receiver at the NFL level. I love his overall frame, and honestly, I think he looks even bigger than what Stanford has him listed as on the depth chart, and I think his size will translate very well to the NFL level. Ayomanor did a lot of his damage in the middle of the field. He ran a lot of slants or in-breaking routes, and he was fantastic in that role. He showed some really solid quickness when breaking out of his routes as well, and he did a pretty solid job of creating space in that area of the field, which was super nice to see. He is a decent separator who knows how to create space in the short to intermediate game, and I love to see that. But the beautiful thing about Ayomanor is he's not limited to the middle of the field. Typically with bigger wide receivers, you don't expect them to have super speed, but Ayomanor did. He was super impressive, and there were multiple instances where he had some really strong initial burst off the line of scrimmage, and he was able to win deep, which I love to see. He had some massive plays at times, and he showed some speed after the catch as well, which is another area that I was really impressed with. I think his speed and quickness is an underrated aspect in his game. An area of concern with Ayomanor could be some inconsistencies in his hands. He made some incredible catches at times, and he had some jaw-dropping plays, but he also had some really disappointing drops. He had 6 drops in the 2023 season, and that is something that is going to get you benched at the NFL level. One thing he does well though, he is a hands catcher. He works his way back to the football, he does a good job of high pointing the ball, and I definitely think he has the intangibles to be a better receiver, but he needs to clean up a few areas and the drops have to drop a little bit. Another inconsistent area from Ayomanor would be his physicality. Bigger wide receivers typically have the ability to win 50-50 balls more consistently, and I wasn't super impressed with his contested catch ability. He was 14 of 29, which is still pretty solid on paper, but I was expecting a little bit more from him, and he just didn't show that in the games that I watched. He also didn't do well against press coverage due to him playing completely vertical at times. He has to improve his stance at the line of scrimmage because when he was met with first contact, he really didn't do very well, so we'll see if he can continue to improve in terms of physicality and maybe not being so vertical at the line of scrimmage. The last area of concern with Ayomanor is his route tree. He ran a very simplified route tree for the Cardinal. Slants, breaking routes, short crossers, and goes. When he was asked to run other things, I actually didn't see a ton of that quickness when separating, which was a bit of a surprise. So that's an area of his that could cause some concern at the NFL level. Elic Ayomanor is an early my guy in this draft class, who due to his speed, quickness, size, and hands combo. Yes, there are some drop concerns, but I'm more worried about a few other aspects in his game, more so than his hands, and you'd like to see him be a bit more physical. But I think he has all the physical tools and some intangibles to be a legit wide receiver 1 at the NFL level, and he comes in as my early wide receiver 3. I love this guy, and I think he's a special athlete. He graded out as a first-round player in my preseason evaluation process. In terms of a scheme fit, I think he is the perfect X receiver at the NFL level. He has the size, he has the speed to win down the field, and he can also make stuff happen in the middle of the field. I think he can be a wide receiver 1 at the NFL level, and I think he has that alpha upside. He's going to work best in a spread offense, in an offense where he can work the middle with slants, crossers, deep posts, and things of that nature, very similar to what he runs at Stanford. My player comparison for Elic Ayomanor is Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin. Both of them have very comparable size, and neither are the most physical wide receivers at the catch point. They both love to work that middle of the field, have reliable hands, but drops do show up from time to time for both of them. The big kicker though is the speed. McLaurin has sneaky speed and shows some real upside to win deep, and I think Ayomanor has that same skill set and can be a very similar wide receiver to what McLaurin has been for the Commanders. Elic Ayomanor has excellent size. He is a big wide receiver with some good speed and quickness with the ability to also win deep. I think he is going to put the ACC on notice this year, and ultimately, I believe that Elic Ayomanor will be an early day 2 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.